The C-suite of the fabrics of capitalism are now behind Bitcoin, and a $10,000 drop makes you want to sell it. Ultra high net worth DCAing to get one Bitcoin. That's how ridiculous this is going to get very quickly. We're on track here for $1 million Bitcoin, $5 million Bitcoin, eventually a $10 million Bitcoin, because clearly a 99% chance that the person that just buys the Bitcoin is going to end up richer than the person with their own I don't care. You and I can both sit here and turn around and say, I'm never going to sell. There's a fucking number and they'll get you. I think about the billionaires that I know. They'll tell me, they'll sit down once and because we're friends and they'll say, okay, yeah, I think it's gonna get violent and I think it's gonna get extreme and I think you better stop. That's why I have private bankers coming to me going, I watch your videos and Bitcoin is.
One of your infamous things that you have talked about over the years is buy Bitcoin and shut your mouth, shut the F up, and just sit back in essence, right? And I'm a believer that is the greatest thing that you can do for humanity, is defunding this corrupt legacy monetary fiat system we're in. But the average person looks at it and says, British, Brandon, what the hell are you guys doing? You guys are sitting there doing nothing. What are you doing for society? The average person just looks at it like we're crazy. I would love for you to unpack the angle you take with this and why it's so important to do exactly what you say.
Yeah, the shut the fuck up thing is kind of interesting, right? Because people kind of take that as don't do anything in regards, don't say anything, don't do anything in terms of either making more money or Bitcoin or anything. And that's not what it's about. The shut the fuck up thing is really about taking your mind and killing the activity bias that your mind has. All of us are susceptible to activity bias. I don't care how rich you are. In fact, the richer you are, probably the more susceptible you are to activity bias. And especially in the world that we live in, that's changing so much. People are coming out, people are talking about, right now, we got it right now. Today, Ethereum seems to, because it's had good price action for 5 days. And so everyone people wondering whether they should be owning Ethereum or not. And look, the reality is it's like 7 days of good price action doesn't take away the thesis of Bitcoin, right? And so, shut the fuck up was really about that. It's about killing your activity bias, the inner monkey that you have inside of you, the inner devil that's like, try this, try that. Do you know how many businesses I've had to not start because I've had an honest conversation with myself and gone, can I beat the Kager on Bitcoin? And the answer is no. That takes a lot of ego death in order to get to that point, especially when you consider yourself an entrepreneurial person, right? You're basically saying like no entrepreneurial activity that I do could outperform what Bitcoin can. So therefore, I'm going to choose to not do any, and that's a lot of people can't handle that. Like you've got to look at your. I know so many entrepreneurs that have basically bought Bitcoin and then basically reduced their position because they had another idea and they couldn't sit on their hands. And the reality is, anyone who bought real estate in London or land in Manhattan, for example, in the 70s, the best thing that they could have done, whether they want to admit it or not, is sat on their hands. And that's what people struggle with. So that's what that was for.
Yes, and I should update. I didn't get the full the quote necessarily. Is buy Bitcoin, shut the fuck up, and get fabulously wealthy. So I think that's right. What ticks people off even more, right? So,
yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Here's what's crazy about it. What's crazy about it is anyone who's considering entrepreneurship, right now where you have Bitcoin as an option, 99% of them. Like if let's say you've got, a business that you've got to start for $500,000 and it's going to take $500,000 of your cash to start it versus someone else who's going to buy Bitcoin, right? Five Bitcoin, let's say, for that $500,000. There is an overwhelming chance, basically a 99% chance that the person that just buys the Bitcoin is going to end up richer than the person with their own genius whiz bang idea. Like most people need to realize that they are not Elon Musk. right? They
Yep.
think they are because your friends tell you, and you watch YouTube
Yeah. Chat
videos that
GPT.
tells you that and the other.
Yeah.
But you're not Elon Musk. You're probably going to be better off buying the Bitcoin catering at 29 to 50% a year for the next decade, and so that requires a little bit of self introspection as well, which a lot of people are not willing to do.
So I actually had about this later to talk about, but I'm bringing it up right now since you just mentioned it, is the Kager. Do you think that, are you of the mind that it will continue to slowly go down over the years, like a la Sailor, or are you a Mark Moss guy to a, where, hey, I think it's actually going to go up potentially and go the other way, opposite of what we think? Like, how do you look at the Kager just extrapolating out in the future?
Yeah, both of those individuals that you mentioned are right. It just depends on what time scale you're looking at. I think that
Mm,
over time, as an asset saturates a liquidity base, the Kager is going to go down. However, we may have a decade where we go through an adoption period, a kind of like a saturation period where you could see the Kager go up for a while, right?
mm-hmm.
As the asset starts saturating this liquidity pool. So that we're gonna find out. I think they're both right. It just depends on time frame.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's a great. There's nuance there for sure. So I'm glad you said that. What I would love an update on just MSTR. Obviously, obviously there's the whole like MNAV. Everyone's freaking out. Everything correlating to one, and there's just everyone's kind of up in arms about that. And we can kind of piece through this a little bit because you have like the statist cypherpunk versus, oh, you guys are statist fight going, and then we have like the other people. It's like, well, look at the MNAV. Everything's compressing, and I would love just kind of the British HODL state of the state, I guess, if you will, when it comes to everything you're seeing in the Bitcoin treasury world, and maybe starting with Sailor and what's going on there.
Yeah, I think that there are people that are losing their minds about the MNAV
Mm-hmm.
and don't realize what Sailor is building. Also, I want to point out there is literally a saying in Wall Street, which is sell in May and go away. And the reason why that saying
Mm-hmm.
exists is because, the summer period basically is the lowest liquidity, lowest volume period in the markets in the year. And anyone losing their mind because of price action in this period is just a complete idiot, or they're a complete newbie, right? And if you're a newbie, I completely understand. But if you claim to understand markets and then shit yourself over, what Wall Street knows is the lowest volume, the lowest liquidity period in the market, and you wonder why Bitcoin has gone down basically from 123 to 110, eh, you're an idiot. Like there's nothing else to say. Or you're lying, right? Either you're new, or you're an idiot, or
Mm-hmm.
you're lying. One or the other. And so I don't think this should be a cause of concern for a lot of people right now. But nevertheless, Bitcoin Twitter continues to be concerned as if something is really going on, and the MNAV debate is quite interesting. You know, a stock who's got its value based on a multiple of Bitcoin is going to have periods of big multiples and periods of low multiples. There are now, I saw CEOs of certain of treasury companies begging people on via YouTube video, sorry, on X videos, basically begging people to buy the stock because it's under a 1 MNAV. And like that's going to happen. You're going to, if you don't,
Mm.
if your one trick pony is basically what MSTR did for the first 4 years of its life, and that is your business strategy, you are going to, face a period where people are going to question that. And MSTR has now basically got multiple different avenues to acquire Bitcoin. So, you know, I, yeah, look, it is a real debate, right? Like, how much is a company worth above and beyond its Bitcoin holding? And I will tell you that it will go through these expansion contraction periods where the MNAV is sort of dancing around the Bitcoin value. But MSTR is the biggest Bitcoin holder. They've just announced that they finally reached 3% of the total supply of Bitcoin just now, and that's what it should. that they will continue to do that, right? And the market will continue to value Bitcoin and MSTR, and then the relationship of MSTR to Bitcoin will continue to expand and contract, and that's what will happen as and when its value is made apparent.
The world is changing. Privacy, sovereignty, and freedom are no longer optional. They are essential. If you are still holding your Bitcoin on an exchange, you are vulnerable to your Bitcoin being frozen or the Bitcoin not even being there. In a world of broken trust, a fallen world, we need to be able to know through code, through math, that we have the keys to our wealth. We don't need to trust some third party. We don't need to trust some government. We don't need to trust some ruler on high that they're going to have our wealth and not censor it from us. Just ask European Union how that's going right now. And that's why at Foundation, they're building Bitcoin tools that are open source, privacy first, and actually simple to use. It's the only kind of Bitcoin crypto tools you should be using. The Passport Core is a Bitcoin-only hardware wallet, probably made in the USA. The only one that I know of, fully air-gapped, no Wi-Fi or Bluetooth to compromise your keys, with a large screen, seamless QR workflows, and encrypted micro SD backups. It is here for the average person or the advanced cryptographer as well. Along with your purchase, you get the attachments, the USB-C cord, the iOS and Android attachments, micro SD card, and the USB-C cable. You don't have to go searching around for everything. You also get the free Envoy mobile app as well. You can buy Bitcoin straight into your self-custody. It helps you set up your Passport Core, label and track your coins, manage your keys, and do so much more. Foundation built the core and their company for sovereignty and freedom for all of humanity. You can take back control of your money and your digital life now. Get started today at foundation.xyz/Brandon, foundation.xyz/BRANDON, or check the link in the description. What is the update? You kind of mentioned just some of their offerings briefly, stuff like that. What are you seeing just in that space? Like, how are you looking at your portfolio? And just when you're talking to people, what are, Strike and Stretch and all these, Misty and all the different offerings that they have? I'd love maybe just your thoughts on just overall what they're doing, but also just your positioning, your overall sense of like, when someone's talking to you or you're talking to someone online or whatever, like, what are you, and again, there's nuance to all of this, like we said earlier, with what, what's going on, time horizons and people and stuff like that. But what are you just kind of seeing with all these offerings right now?
Yeah, look, MSTR, if you got to imagine MSTR as kind of like a social network, but for capital, not people, right? So if you think about X, for example, or any social network, there's different features to the social network, and different people use those different features, right? So you've got, you can have, on Instagram, for example, you can direct message someone. You can double tap their photos to like it. You can comment on their photos to like it. You can follow someone. All of these things are different features, right? People don't look at it like that. They look at it as one product, but that's not how you're supposed to look at it. These are all different features that put together add value to Instagram as a platform. That's what Saylor is basically building for the capital markets. All of these different products, STRF, STRD, STRK, STRC, thus far have different return profiles. They have different amount of capital, different types of capital that would be interested in each product. And they're basically creating this world where, no matter what type of capital you have in the fixed income markets, there is an offering from MSTR for you to gain access to the return profile that you are looking for that specific type of capital. And so, and together, all of those things combined will then give MSTR a certain value multiple above and beyond its underlying Bitcoin holding, right? Like, for example, if Instagram suddenly took away your ability to direct message someone, it would affect the overall value proposition of Instagram and therefore the value of that product, right? But if they add a value proposition that is useful, right, then it will increase the value of the platform. And that's what MSTR is going through. It's basically hitting a slew of different offerings, and we got to see which ones. Some are going to be valuable, some are not going to be valuable to the market, and the market will go through its evaluation process to decide, which one is valuable, which one is not. And while we're doing that, morons on Twitter will dance with their emotions on a day-to-day basis about, what the MNAV should be. The reality is you don't know what the MNAV should be. It is it's an expanding and contracting thing, and it will do this as time goes on, and we'll figure out. There's going to be one product that MSTR launches for the capital markets that basically just hundreds of billions of dollars want to go into it, and they
Mm-hmm.
got to find that. I personally think that's going to be either the STRC or the STRK product, but we'll see. We'll see which one it turns out to be.
So when you're setting up your, and you've talked about this sorts over the years, but I love just for the person we have a lot of people that are just learning in this channel, stuff like that. Very advanced people watch this channel, and then people that are coming in for the first time. Like, how do you look at the Bitcoin, like what strategies doing versus in stocks and the kind of the equity side of things, and then versus Bitcoin in cold storage and in custodying your assets? Like, how do you see that yourself, and how do you speak to people about that when you're, again, kind of this
Yeah.
portfolio construction?
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely tired of that debate now because there is just institutional offerings that are beating out, the reason for self custody. The reason for self custody to me is very simple. It is your run bag, right? It is the bag that's waiting in case the house starts burning, and if that happens, you take your run bag and you're gone. Um, that's how I kind of look at cold storage. When my parents want to buy Bitcoin now, the first thought process is IBIT, right? I don't even think about cold storage anymore. They don't at this point they don't have any Bitcoin in cold storage. It's all IBIT or MSTR. It's the easiest one to manage. They're not gonna sit here and try and evade the government. They're not gonna sit here and try and evade taxes. It's not what they're trying to do, right? It's not what their expectation from Bitcoin is. Saying that, I do think that there is merit in having cold storage Bitcoin if you want to keep the banking system at bay. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that you can actually take bearer possession of that asset. And if that is important to you, then doing that is very important because the banking system will be able to leverage based on how much Bitcoin they have in the future. And if they have less Bitcoin on the balance sheet, then they can leverage less. So therefore, if that's important to you, then taking possession of the Bitcoin will basically delever the banking system, right? Or at least on Bitcoin. So yeah, I think that's extremely important, right? So and then if you want to look at it and go, okay, I'm comfortable with cold storage, but I also kind of want to take advantage of the institutional side. How should I look at this? Well, a simple way of looking at that is what probability do you give to the US collapsing in the next decade? And whatever probability you assign to that, maybe that's how much you keep in cold storage, and the rest of it you keep in, different vehicles. And then there's also the advantage of I don't want to do anything else. I just want my Bitcoin, and I want to be simple, and I don't want to have a broker account. I don't want to do these things. That's fine. So then have 100% of it in cold storage. But that debate is old now. It's been defeated. There is going to be an institutional and a cold storage, kind of blend in a normal portfolio, and how much you have in each one is a personal question on how fast you think the system's going to melt away, and you gotta look into the mirror and ask yourself what number what the probability is of that.
Yeah, I think this is just such like a fascinating world. Like you said, like everyone has their different there's nuance to it, like you said, how fast will the world melt, and everyone has their opinion of that. And it's this idealism versus pragmatism, where it's like idealistically everyone's in self custody and it's just like this perfect world utopia, but here, governments have it now, corporations, like that was inevitable. So like, how do you square that circle, right? Like pragmatically, like you said, you have to be pragmatic at the same time. This is what it is, guys. So how do we, like you said, having some in custody and having as much as possible, we'll say, like that's what keeps people at bay. You're never going to have 100% in self custody. So I think it's fascinating. So I love that you kind of brought that out, because it's important.
I actually don't think it's fascinating. I think it's a stupid debate in 2025. Like, there's going to be some in cold storage, and there's going to be some in institutional hands, and MSTRs. I put a significant portion of my overall portfolio into MSTR because
yeah,
like
yep.
I just believe and trust and understand and can see the methodology of how Saylor is leveraging Bitcoin for a higher return to Bitcoin. So to me, it's like, okay, well, I want a significant, I want him to do that. My first question actually was, can I do that? Right. And then so I went around and I saw, can I borrow money at the same rate that Saylor's borrowing it? And the answer was no. Right. So it was all right. Well, okay. So am I preparing to evade taxes? Am I preparing to circumvent governments? And the answer is no. Any one of these Bitcoin maxis that's sitting there going, this, you're going to fight the government by holding self custody, are complete morons. They first of all, most of them have U.S. passports, which means you're trapped. Like, what are you going to do? Unless you're willing to give up your U.S. citizenship, you can't even start the debate of circumventing the government, because your passport literally says that you will be chased for taxes everywhere in the world. So if you haven't got the balls to give up your citizenship, what are we talking about with Bitcoin? They're going to arrest you, put you in a cell. It's going to take probably 3 nights for most people, right? Probably take 3 nights for me. Let's do a deal. Right? That's the reality of the situation. So really, it's not really about the governments, because the government has power, has physical power to point a gun in your face, whether that gun is, lawfare, or whether that gun is prison time, or whatever that is, right? They have or just a gun, right? They have the ability to exert overwhelming physical dominance over you, where you are going to hand over your Bitcoin. Or it's not going to be you, it's going to be your family, or it's going to be your children, or you haven't even got the balls to give up your citizenship, and you haven't got the balls to live in a shitty state, let alone, like, I see people from, like, Florida, New York, California talking about they're going to fight the government. You don't even have the balls to go and live in Detroit.
Well,
what are we talking about?
Yeah, and I say all the time, the Revolutionary War, in America, obviously, was fought with only a couple percent of the people. Most people, vast majority, were never willing to do a single thing, right? So
yeah, what was that mentality like at the time, right? That mentality was, let's get these morons to finish their little war, and then we can get on with normal life.
It was, exactly, but most people don't even recognize or realize that. So, obviously price, and you just mentioned price earlier too, like it's hit 110 down to $14,000 off the all-time high just in the last few weeks basically. And I would love your thought just on the consolidation we've seen just over the last couple months, I guess, call it, really, and we've had this kind of chopping higher a bit. But what are you seeing on that front? It feels like you said, Bitcoin Twitter, it feels like there's a lot of people that are ready to capitulate in a way. Like, you got a lot of people that are really antsy. They're very nervous. It seems like it's a weird energy out there right now. So I would love for you to, the British HODL take on what's going on right now with price.
I mean, look, they're basically sell it. Like, that's my thought. Sell it. Like, if we're in a bull market period, Bitcoin, generally speaking, every single bull market cycle does 30% corrections about 7 times. We haven't even managed to hit a 10% correction yet. Well, maybe slightly more, right? We haven't even managed to hit a 20% correction yet. And if this is making you shit yourself, sell it. I'm there now. Like, I'm not even trying to help people anymore. Like, sell it. Sell it. You mean to tell me that in 2025, when BlackRock, the president, the U.S. government, the C-suite of the fabrics of capitalism are now behind Bitcoin, and a $10,000 drop makes you want to sell it? Sell it. Who cares? I don't care anymore. I actually want Michael Saylor to buy their Bitcoin. I want myself to buy their Bitcoin. I want Larry Fink to control their Bitcoin, because they've proven that they're absolutely ballless creatures. Sell it. Sell it. Go buy Ethereum. Go buy whatever, Dogecoin, whatever you go buy it. Go buy the meme coins. I don't care. Genuinely, I'm at the point where I do not care. You know why I got to this point? Because I think about the billionaires that I know, right? And I think about the conversation that I have with the billionaires that I know. And I think about, when I'm thinking of making a large decision, a large financial decision, and I consult people that are wealthier than me, significantly wealthier than me, and I ask them their opinion, and they're, okay, I mean, they'll tell me, they'll sit down once, and because we're friends, and they'll say, okay, yeah, I think this is a good idea because of this, or I think this is a bad idea because of that. If there's any more further debate, it's basically, okay, like, they don't have the bandwidth to worry about a big financial decision to me. So when I'm thinking about people with basically I mean, most of these people that are thinking about doing this got less than one Bitcoin net worth, right? We're talking about people
Mhm.
with a $20,000 net worth or the $1,000 net worth, or basically, like I used to say, like, you think that you're that fucking important? Bitcoin is a monetary network, right? Which means Larry Fink understood this better than anyone. Larry Fink understood that Bitcoin is a monetary network, which means the dollars are more important than the people, which is why BlackRock focuses on the top 1%, which has more wealth now than the bottom 99%, for real, not just for meme quality. And so that's what BlackRock does. They focus on the top 1%. Now you got to want to be here. And if you don't want to be here in the world that's being created, in the ecosystem that's being created around Bitcoin because of a 10% price dip, sell it. I just don't give a shit anymore. Sell it. I encourage people to sell it.
What is your and I guess actually we'll do this really quick. What is your, so you, for a long time you said get to one Bitcoin. Has that changed at all? Are we at a point where it's get to 0.1 Bitcoin, get to 0.001? Like you
No,
kind of, okay.
Get to one Bitcoin is always the North Star. And I said that my time, I think everyone has a time in space, right? And my time
Yeah.
in the Bitcoin space will be the get to one period. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what I have done is basically realize that get to one Bitcoin is now possible for maybe 0.4% of the world's population,
Right.
if you figure it out now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what I have done is started basically realizing that I think if you are a multimillionaire at this point through real estate, business, all this other stuff, equities, whatever you have, then I think a good allocation is around 24% of a portfolio. So, now I'm not even talking to the people that it's like one Bitcoin. It's like multiple Bitcoins now, but 24% of a portfolio. And I think that's where we're going to see Wall Street, et cetera, get to over the next, I would say, 5 to 10 years. It's going to be a 24% allocation.
What is your opinion on just the overall driver price? Is it, is it global liquidity like M2? Is it just a confluence of many things? You're like, F it, it is what it is. Like, how do you see that when you kind of look at like, hey, where are flows, where are things headed, and what is really that backer of the Bitcoin price movements?
There's only two things. Number one is global liquidity. That drives everything. Number two is saturation. We are going through a period where Bitcoin has become a must-own asset, and it's going to go through that period of saturation of how much does it take to satisfy that must-own category. And so those two things are the only two things to me. Everything else is irrelevant. Is it still, is global liquidity still going to expand? Number one. And number two, is Bitcoin still a must-own asset? And yes, the answer is yes to both of those. So we're on track here for $1 million Bitcoin, $5 million Bitcoin, eventually a $10 million Bitcoin, because global liquidity will keep expanding and Bitcoin will be a must-own asset. And the underlying of all of that is that there's only 21 million.
You talked about something a second ago too, right? When you're asking your friends or people that are significantly wealthier than you or billionaires, and you had said something somewhat recently too about really the rich getting richer. And I think that I would love your thought just on maybe people you surround yourself with, even because you were talking, I think it was with Tim or somebody, and you were talking about how the guy who had $250 million net worth had, they were telling him to buy Bitcoin. And then the guy that had like a $7 million net worth, they were like, yeah, like you can just buy bonds, like, whatever. So I would love your thoughts just kind of on this world where it is like the guys at the bottom, they're just, you're with the leftovers, like the guys at the top have the people that are really thinking and doing stuff. So I would love just a second, your thought on this, and just, again, why is this so important? Like everything we're talking about, like the things you educate on every single day.
Yeah, I had a private banker at an event tell me that I was on a panel at, and he told me that Bitcoin is the perfect private banking asset, right? for all the reasons that everyone talks about. And what that tells you is that you have to be at a private banking level in order to get the best thinking from a banker about Bitcoin. And true private banking is not your, $150,000 City Gold or Chase, whatever it is. Like you're talking about, Chase private client, $10 million and above type of relationship, to get the best thinking out of these guys. And Robert Kiyosaki used to talk about this, that the middle class is basically dying and it's evaporating. And that's where I think we're at. I think the middle class is basically evaporating. And unless you're in that higher category, basically, how common is it to be a millionaire now?
Yeah.
Almost if you are into money and talking to people that are into money, you're basically overwhelmingly going to be talking to millionaires, because just by owning your own home, you've become a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And so, and I believe that, having $1 million liquid is worth about 10 times in asset form. So if you have $1 million in Bitcoin, it's almost like having $1 million. It's almost like having a $10 million real estate portfolio, because of the speed at which liquid can move. So yeah, I mean that's the way that, look, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is the perfect private banking asset. It is pristine liquidity, pristine collateral everywhere in the world at the same time. It can move at the speed of light. It can be the same asset in London, Miami, New York, Dubai, Singapore, Bangkok, Shanghai, anywhere in the world. It can be the same asset instantly. And that has multiple value as well, and that will dictate the overall market cap of Bitcoin as well. So, I mean, look, it's hard to sit here as someone who's been shouting about people getting to 1 Bitcoin for now 3 to 4 years, and still tell people that they have time. Like now I used to say this, like it is going to price out different net worths. And now we are going to price out the $5 to $10 million net worth, because we spent time pricing out the $1 million, $2 million net worths. I don't know many real estate millionaires that have the ability to buy $100,000 something.
True.
If they just figured it out like tomorrow, right? Like,
Right.
Put it like this: if you can't buy like a low end Porsche 911 on a whim, then you really don't have the ability to buy a Bitcoin at this point, at this point in time. That's insane.
Yeah.
Do you understand how fucking crazy that is? Right? So, at the same time, like I look at that and I go, okay, well, what's my job now? Right? Because like I tried to bully all the $1,000 net worthers to get to 1 Bitcoin as quick as possible. Some of them listened, some of them got triggered because they couldn't do it. They were crybabies. They couldn't figure it out. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know that all it took was work, right? And they could get to 1 Bitcoin. And that's okay. Someone will take care of them, I'm sure. I'm sure they won't face the regret of not getting to 1 Bitcoin after, Uncle Bullish has been shouting at them for 4 years to get to 1 Bitcoin, and now it's sitting at $100,000, $120,000 a coin. But that's life, right? That's life. You win some, you lose some. Go find something else to do. And you know what the beautiful thing is? That you know what they're going to do? They're going to go find meme coins, and they're going to go find Ethereum, and they're going to go find these other things, not realizing that really all it takes is hard work. And what you got to do is do the hard work, add the value, save in Bitcoin, and you're going to be okay. But they won't want to do that because their ego won't let them. So then what will they do? They will go find the meme coins, they will go trade, and they will continue to fuck themselves, just like they've been doing, just like their parents did before that, and just like their grandparents did before that, because they have a poverty mindset that has been carried forward through their DNA, and there's only going to be a small number of people that manage to break free from that. I have to fight this. I have to fight this every single day. I have to look at my decision making and thought processes and how I'm thinking about things, and focus on staying rich and staying wealthy. And part of that is Bitcoin. Part of that for me, your activity bias starts kicking in, this, that, and the other. Part of it is battling that every single day. Most people don't have the ability to do that, and that's okay. That's okay, right? I mean, it's not okay. If it was me, it wouldn't be okay for myself. But for them, the reality is most people are not going to make it because that's what the rat race is about. But what are you going to do? You got a generational poverty habits that are going to keep creeping in. And then there's going to be those people that they just have enough, right? Look at the guy that sold 80,000 Bitcoin through Galaxy Digital. Guy's a multi-billionaire now and was like, you know what? I don't want to be 100 billionaire. I'm going to sell out my 80,000 Bitcoin and that's enough. I'm going to check out. Okay, cool. Everyone has their number.
Everything you are learning in this episode is completely moot and does not matter. If you hold Bitcoin and are still leaving it on an exchange or sharing keys and your KYC information with a third party, this is your wake-up call now. You are only self-sovereign if you alone hold the keys to your wealth. 100% self-custody sounds daunting at first. Believe me, I lost 2 years of massive gains over a decade ago because I was worried about taking the few minutes it took to understand self-custody. And that's exactly why you need to talk to my friends, Tony Yazbek and his team at the Bitcoin Way. We just interviewed Tony recently, has over 80,000 views, an overwhelming response. People love his story and the simplicity he shares of how easy it is to custody and take ownership of the greatest money we've ever seen. They'll train you to do it right the first time. Head on over to thebitcoinway.com/Brandon to schedule a free 30-minute consultation today. Their 5-star rated service is exactly what you need. Quit sitting on your hands like I did and get started today. Again, that's thebitcoinway.com/BRANDON. Now that you have the professional team in place, you need the professional tools to store your generational wealth forever on a titanium C plate. Your 12 to 24 words are your generational wealth. That is the key for your Bitcoin, no matter where you are in the universe. Go to Stampseed, code Brandon at checkout for 15% off store-wide. This withstands fire, flood, nuclear fallout. We shot hockey pucks this thing. Don't become a statistic and put your generational wealth in paper. Go to Stampseed now, code Brandon at checkout for 15% store-wide to secure your generational wealth forever. Well, first, actually, I want to go back to really quick the inflation thing. You were saying like how many millionaires and like how everyone, like if you're in the money space, you're a millionaire. And I was just like my barber, like a couple months ago, I like whipped out the inflation calculator because we were talking about this in 1968. $1 million then would be like having $9 million today. So to back up what you were saying, everyone's a millionaire nowadays, right? Like if you just happen to own a couple assets, you're probably a millionaire. So just for perspective for some people. But is there a point where Bitcoin, in your mind, whether it's 100 years from now or 50 or whatever it is, I think government currencies are going to be around for a little while here, but is there at some point where it just goes no bid and people won't accept government currencies for Bitcoin anymore, where it's like, nope, Bitcoin is money?
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's an old gold bug, like wet dream. That's not going to happen. Yeah, I was a gold bug as well. Everyone knows that.
I was too.
Like
I know.
Yeah, my history's in gold. That's a gold bug wet dream that will never come true. Because you know why? There's a number. I don't care. You and I can both sit here and turn around and say, I'm never going to sell. There's a fucking number. We might not sell everything, right? And that's the beautiful thing about having more than one, because now you have optionality. We might not sell everything, but there's a fucking number. And they'll get you. They will get you. That's why get to one was like the starting point. Now it's 24% and whatever that, and I 24% is not as sexy as get to one. It's not a message for that, right? The get to one message is a time. Like I just had to accept that the amount of messages I get from people saying they got to one Bitcoin watching because of the kicks up the ass that I was giving for 4 years. It's like I have to actually accept that there may never be anything else that I can do to get more people more wealth than that one message for the last 4 years of my life. Right? Like that's the reality of the situation. So now it's like, okay, well, what's the next most valuable message I can give? And that is, if you've got a $10 million net worth, you better get your fucking ass to 24% Bitcoin now. because you're about to be priced out, and then we're coming for the 15 to 20 million dollar net worth, and then we're coming for the ultra high net worth, and that's just how this is going to go. You think someone who's got a 33 whatever it is for ultra high net worth, like 30, let's just say $30 million net worth, that's 90% of it is sticking in real estate based on Schwab data. Do you think that they have the ability to pay $1 million for something? Because I don't.
No.
I really don't. I don't think they have that. Right? So you're going to see people ultra high net worth DCAing to get one Bitcoin. That's how ridiculous this is going to get very quickly.
Wild, absolutely wild. So I just, speaking of self custody, I just got my passport, my foundation passport the other day. Another one, my wallet. So ironically, like we were talking about earlier, but what I wanted to bring up though, more importantly, is the European Union. Like what I want your thoughts on what the hell is going on over there, and are they going to bail on their citizens? Like, what is your take? What is going on back on the European continent?
Yeah, I think, Europe, and it's really the EU. It's not Europe. Europe is the
True.
land,
Yeah.
and the EU
Yeah.
is the government, right? I think what's going on is we are about to culminate on the reality of a bunch of bad decisions that sounded like good decisions for the last 40 years. And we're about to culminate on what that actually looks like. And then we're going to have to decide whether that was right and how quickly and violently we start bouncing back. It all moves in cycles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to start evaluating how these decisions have worked out and whether or not we want to bounce back or not, and what that means, and how violent that gets and how extreme that gets. I have no idea. But a lot of my American friends always talk about their ability to stand up to things and this, that, and the other. And I say, when it comes to history, Europe has a much more higher tolerance and ability to get violent to people than America does. America is much more tolerant than the UK and Europe, based on history. So we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to get violent, and I think it's going to get extreme, and I think you better start planning to hedge. What you're going to do when that happens. It's not
Yeah,
looking good.
unfortunately. No, I know. I unfortunately agree with you wholeheartedly, which sucks. So, we touched on altcoins for a minute. Just I would like to extrapolate that on that just a little bit, or just have you unpack that a little bit more. Like, why is it after all this time, and maybe again it's self-explanatory, and like again the 3% fought the American Revolution, like most people are just not going to get things ever, like no one even knows the system we live in now, so how the hell are they going to get Bitcoin, they're not going to fight for independence, like most people just don't do that. And maybe that's the answer, but why is it the gambling and like just the constant like, hey, is it we're trading for more fiat all of a sudden, and we don't see this system right here where it's immutable. You can't do anything with it. There's no one that can F with it. But over here, we're going to like play, walk on hot coals and like try to get to the, jump over the jaws, in the pool, and like do all these American Ninja Warrior games in order to like try to get this prize at the end. Is it just psychology that just trips people up? Like what, fear, greed, like what is it to you that keeps people coming back to this well?
It's very simple. People will do, most of the time, will do whatever it takes for them to feel safe. And where most people feel safe is in a state of absolute desperation and poverty. And they will find themselves back there, one way or another. It's as simple as that. In order to, the reason why they say Bitcoin fixes a lot of things in society is because the actual process of hodling Bitcoin is a breaker of a poverty mindset. Just the process of hodling it through extreme highs and extreme lows teaches you things that will break a poverty mindset. It teaches you to hold on to things. That's not what they teach you in when you're
Mm-hmm.
basically dealing with a poverty upbringing. right? That's not what they teach you. It's all about quick gains, quick returns, this, that, and the other. So then you see a bunch of broke people that with money that now want to get into, how to play, or they finally find an escape valve. And then, of course, what comes along? The devil comes along with a
Mm-hmm.
distraction, right? And the
Yep.
distraction right now is meme coins and Bitcoin treasury companies and all these things. And some people will fight that, and most people won't, and they'll end up back on the rat race. And it is what it is.
Yeah, it's so well said. I mean, it really is a personal
You know what's
development
crazy? I
mindset
just want to
issue.
point out because this is like it's starting to sound like a very negative, like reality. And the reality is this: it is fucking negative. This is hard. It is hard to hodl.
Life.
It is hard to
Yeah.
sit here and watch your net worth go down 60, 70% over and over again. It's hard to do this. That's why so few people are actually wealthy in the world. It's fucking hard. You thought it was going to be easy because it's a coin. It's hard. It's just hard. Like I don't know what else to say to people. Like, yeah, go for it. Go trade the meme coins. Go do that. That's where you feel comfortable. You feel comfortable being in that desperate state. That's why you're drawn to it. So go do it. What else do you want me to tell you? What else? What type of empathy do you want from people that are also struggling with the mindset, the generational mindset of poverty, right? Like that's what we're all fighting with. And I don't know any other industry, any other asset where there are people willing to sit there forever, basically, and help you. Do you think this is the case in real estate? It's absolutely not. Bitcoiners are amazing people, right? It's kind of weird to me because I'm like, I'm a Bitcoiner, but I find it hard to identify with that mindset, like how empathetic Bitcoiners are. It's truly something special, right? That doesn't exist in real estate. It doesn't exist in equities. It doesn't exist in
Right.
gold. It doesn't exist in anything else but Bitcoin, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, but most people will not take advantage of it. They won't heed to the lessons because their addiction to speculation will keep them going back. Whereas the reality is this: like, you know, when a very wealthy person speculates, they're speculating with 1%, 0.5% of their net worth. The dollar amount looks big, but the reality, the question you should be asking is, what percentage of your net worth are you putting into something, right? So when someone, I got a friend, and he owns $10 million of Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the guy's worth $600 million, right? Like $500 million of his net worth is in Bitcoin. So it's like, yeah, so if he turns around and says, "Yeah, I own $10 million of Ethereum," sounds like a crazy amount.
Mm-hmm.
But then you realize he's worth $600 million.
Yep.
That $10 million could go poof tomorrow. He doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's how the wealthy speculate. That's why I always say, like, you have to earn your right to speculate. You have to be wealthy enough to speculate. And of course, poor people don't want to hear that. And so, they lose their minds. They want the right, okay, well, speculate then. You're going to get your ass handed to you by the wealthy people that know how to control the game. Because the reality of meme coins and all this other stuff is this: it's all a club. When I was in real estate, and I first started in real estate, so when I was in real estate, and we would look at trying to take over a building in Canary Wharf. Like, let's say we wanted to get into
Mm-hmm.
a building. We would want to control as much of the building as possible. And when I first started, we would control maybe 25, 30% of a new building. But then as I got into more and more into the game, there was a conglomerate, basically, right? A consortium that we could actually control, a majority of a building. And when that would happen, what would we do? It's very simple, right? And I'm talking about 2007, right? 2008, 2009 time period. Go control the whole building. And when it came up, none of the properties were available to rent. We would put up one property for rent, and when that got rented, the next one would come onto the market, and suddenly we would raise the rents by 10 to 15%. And then by the time you start putting, all of these, you stagger these properties onto the market, the average rental value on the whole building is like 40% higher than what it would have been had we put all the properties onto the market. Same thing would happen if we wanted to offload a building and sell it. But that's how meme coins work. You got a small group of people who are all friends, who are all in the same, clubs, who are all in the same groups, who are all in the same mindset, that control the liquidity, control the offering, control the development team, control everything, control all the YouTubers that promote it, control everything. And you think you're going to win against that group?
Yeah, it's
Good luck.
I gotta. Yeah, I swear. So you brought up something which I think is great, and I got to find the actual like articles. I've read it like a long time ago, or I saw it. I forget what it was, but it was about gamblers and people are addicted to losing. It's like the dopamine hit you get from losing, and that's why casinos are packed. Like people love that rush of losing almost as much or more than they do winning. Like you said, it's just mindset that most people have grown up with, or like I don't deserve it, right? So it's like this overwhelming, like I don't deserve it. It's an addiction, So anyway, it's fascinating. It's a whole different topic for a different day. But what is your outlook for like in today's dollars? What is the total addressable market for Bitcoin in your eyes? Is it, hey, am I Peter Dunworth? It's multiples of the 900 trillion in total assets. Is it Jeff Booth? It's got to account for all 900 trillion, or Jack Muller's it's 450. One half of every asset out there. Where are you on this spectrum of what is it? In today's dollars, what is the total addressable market for Bitcoin itself?
Yeah, I think it's real estate. So roughly $350 trillion. And that's what I think we got to get to first. I think it's significantly higher than gold. I think it's a multiple on gold, right? So gold is what? Let's say 20 trillion
or something.
Right?
Yeah.
20 something. I think we're actually sitting at around a $350 trillion addressable market. I think Bitcoin can replace real estate. And the reason why I think that is the reason why real estate's worth $350 trillion is because it's a securitized asset, right? It is not because the property has any value. It's because the value of the debt that you can attach to the property has value. And I figured this out. So 2008 was my first recession, and I was in business. First whatever. And it was now looking back on it, back then it wasn't, it was a nightmare. But now looking back on it, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because history basically says you face like a 2008 style recession maybe once every 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, when I look at that, it's like, all right, well, I have had mine. Everything else is a cakewalk when it comes to like 2008. I mean, 2008 was so terrifying because it went from like 1 week to the next. All credit and liquidity dried up. I'm talking about from like it didn't just like drip down and slow down. It wasn't a slowdown. It was a stop. Right. So, I learned in 2008, which really took me 12 years to learn that lesson to prepare me for 2020, was that it wasn't about the real estate. Real estate was not the value driver. The credit attached to the real estate was the value driver. Property prices fell 40 to 50% in 2008, not because suddenly the house was worth less. It was because the credit was worth less, was available less. And so that made me realize that every asset's value is dependent on the credit availability on that asset, right? And the value of the credit on that asset. And so that's how I look at Bitcoin. It's like, what is the value of credit attached to Bitcoin versus real estate over the next 2 decades? And I think it's exponentially higher. Why? Because if I have a real estate book, let's say, I need a whole team. to figure out whether that real estate, let's say I want to lend on property in Dubai here, right? I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at a building right now that's going up. And the most expensive apartment in that building that they're building right now across from me is something like $30 million for an apartment, right? Now, imagine I have a net worth in Singapore and I want to come here and I want to buy that apartment. Most Singaporean banks are not going to give me financing on this. I'm going to have to come to Dubai, deal with a Dubai bank, a Dubai mortgage provider, a Dubai everything, and then figure out lending on that, right? So there's going to be a premium attached to that. So there's going to be higher interest rates. There's going to be all this other stuff. Bitcoin, I can have $100 million of Bitcoin in Singapore, or $100 million of Bitcoin in Dubai, or $100 million of Bitcoin in London, or $100 million of Bitcoin in New York, Miami, wherever you want to mention. And any lender can lend on it. Why? Because the due diligence is the blockchain, right? There is no need for a team or a risk management department to manage the risk in Dubai. If they want to do a $30 million loan on an apartment, they need to go through a level of due diligence and risk management that the average person would shit themselves over. They need a perspective on Dubai. They need a perspective on property prices in Dubai. They need all this other stuff. And they still wouldn't lend on it without collateral. Think about that.
Yeah.
They have all these teams figuring out Dubai and the market and the perspective, how to get their money back and all this other stuff. What's the property value is going to be like over the next 2 decades or the term of the loan. And they still need collateral. That's how unconfident they are on their own research and their own understanding of the market. Whereas with Bitcoin, I can basically have a team of 5 nerds sitting in an office and launch a $10 billion loan book. Right? Like that's the multiple power on Bitcoin. And that's why I think it is worth, 2, 3, 4, 5 times the credit of real estate, because I don't need the extra cost associated with that. That's why I have private bankers coming to me going, I watch your videos and Bitcoin is the pristine private banking capital. There's a reason for this.
What are your thoughts for this? I guess take it wherever you want, but what are your thoughts just on where price is headed in the next year? It could be by 2030 or 2035. Sailors, gold rush he talks about. I mean, where do you kind of see things shaking out in the coming cycles?
Yeah, look, here's my thought process. I don't know what happens to the cycles. And the reason why I don't know is because the players in the game are different now, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you've realized, that Galaxy Digital sale was very, very important to watch, because they
Yeah.
sold basically like 0.5% of the overall supply on a weekend, and the price dipped by 3%. Right? That is unheard of for Bitcoin.
Wow.
So the buyers have changed. The bed of orders, right? The bed of
Mm-hmm.
orders in the market is different now. And we don't know what impact a slowdown in purchasing is going to have. So here's the 2 scenarios. Number one, we go through what gold went through, which is basically 8 straight years of up, green years after 2004 when the ETFs were launched, or we're going to go through a period where these buyers, these strategic buyers, have realized that it's very easy to bring down a market like this, because all we've got to do is lift off the daily purchasing demand, and that will, cause a free fall in prices and offer better prices for us to buy. But then you got to look at it and go, okay, so if I'm a buyer that's doing that, then what is the other competitive buyers? And then you look at the game theory of that, right? And you go, okay, well, let's say I'm a nation state. Let's assume nation states are buying by the time this cycle ends.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, okay, well, the buying lifts off. But now let's say the US lifts off its buying, but does Russia start its buying at 20%? Do they wait
Mm-hmm.
for a
Right.
dip? Like how do they start looking at, okay, when is the right time for me to buy? And that, I don't know, so that's the one side of it. And you go, okay, well, yeah, there could be a normal 4-year cycle, but the players in the game are different. The incentives are different. That's from a nation state perspective. Look at it from BlackRock perspective, right? It's like, are we incentivized to allow an asset to go up 400% in the space of 4 months and then crash 80% for 3 years? I don't think so, because you're making money off fees, right? So what's the point of IBIT going from 70 billion to 340 billion and then crashing back down to 70 billion? I want that, 25 basis points or whatever it is on 340 billion, right? So I don't know. I don't know what really is going to happen here. The cycles have completely changed. Over the next decade, let's say, I think we're somewhere between a 30 and a 60% CAGR on Bitcoin. And so that's where I rest. I'm somewhere between Sailor and what's been happening, basically.
Community is the number one most important thing in a survival situation. And newsflash, you're human, so you're in a survival situation. October 10th through the 13th is your island retreat. Camp Nakamoto, brought to you by Mass Adoption. I will be speaking there. Nellie Brunel, Mark Moss, Larry Lepard, David Foley, James Lavish, BJ Dichter, Luke Broyles, Michelle Weekly, and many more will be there to have fun. Lots of games, activities, Cattleman's Feast, crab bakes. There's going to be everything you can imagine in this beautiful part of Northern New Hampshire. We look forward to seeing you there for 15% off tickets. Gentile 15, Gentile 15, Gentile 15. There's only a couple dozen remaining out of the 100 plus that were available. So get them now. We look forward to seeing you in October.
So you see a lot of the world more than many people. What are your thoughts just on the global adoption? Like, do you think it's USA will be the first to mine or like start buying Bitcoin, or do you think it's the field? Like, do you have any inkling on like there's certain countries or places where you're like, hey, stuff, shit's about to explode over here? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are waiting on the US to buy Bitcoin for basically like strategic cover.
Yeah,
I am quite concerned with how little support Cynthia Lummis is getting for her bill. That's quite concerning, even after the president has jumped on board and everything else. So I am concerned at that. But you have great people, right? You have the Bitcoin Policy Institute that's doing great work in getting all branches of government focused onto Bitcoin. There's a lot of good things happening in the U.S. So I'm very positive on the U.S. And its Bitcoin adoption. I do think that it has to be. I think that the U.S. is setting up here to utilize Bitcoin as basically the next evolution, backing of the next evolution of the U.S. dollar.
Yeah,
that's what I think is going on here.
Yeah. Yep. Do you, or I should say, what were some of the moments that really orange pilled you? Like, what were those moments where you're just like your aha moments? Where you're like, damn, like this is not what I thought it was. Like this is something different.
There were no multiple moments. It was one moment. It was during COVID, and I was basically in London, walking around a park like a sheep that's just basically trapped in one place like everybody else. And this was during like the first lockdown when everyone was like, all right, this must be kind of serious, right, if they're doing all of this. And then you realize it was basically a joke. And a friend of mine who I take very seriously, and he called me and he said, hey, I know you're going to laugh at this, so we're not going to have any further conversations after I tell you this until you read a specific book, which I'm also going to tell you to read. And he said, I have allocated 25% to Bitcoin. And as I'm about to, I thought Bitcoin was a scam for years. Mm-hmm. And as I'm about to say, are you fucking kidding me? He goes, read the Bitcoin Standard and don't call me back until you read the Bitcoin Standard. And hangs up. And so, I'm walking around this park, downloaded the Bitcoin, because I was like, oh, this guy's a fucking moron. And he's a good friend of mine, super wealthy. We all talk about investment decisions and thoughts and things like that together. We have a mastermind, right? That's the one thing I think people need to realize. Like, the more stupidity happens in this world where, Bitcoin, it becomes an important asset, and yet people's activity biases and their poverty thinking and all this other stuff starts coming up, even in the Bitcoin space. It's going to be very important for you to find your group, right? And find your club and find your your people. It's going to be extremely important to do that. Otherwise, they're going to convince you to let go of this Bitcoin so easy, so quick, and so simply, right? So it's important to start finding your tribe, so to say. And I would argue that even within Bitcoin, it's hard to find a tribe, because you got the fucking happy hippies on one side that think Bitcoin is about buying coffee, and then you've got, the blockchain people on the other side that want to buy different chains because they think they all have value. And then you got us people in the middle that are like, just buy Bitcoin, shut the fuck up, and get fabulously wealthy. And you're basically pulled in every direction. And then you've got Tom Lee that starts up, an Ethereum mining, an Ethereum treasury company. And Tom Lee's a smart guy. I think he's onto a winner for himself here. I think he's probably gonna, this is gonna be a $250 million payday for Tom Lee, and I think that's awesome. I'm very happy for him. I think he's super smart. And then you've got, Bitcoiners launching treasury companies, and then you're like, there's just so much. Like, you got to find your group that's going to keep you grounded on what the opportunities are and what the developments are and what everything else is. So I would highly recommend people do that. That's very urgent for people to do. Find your tribe. And that's why I try and hold on to the steadfast message of, buy Bitcoin, shut the fuck up, get fabulously wealthy. Like, I think it's a very simple mantra for people to realize. I've completely forgotten the question that you asked me, by the way, at this point.
No, that was, I was just going to say that, what were the aha moments? Like, what orange pilled you? So that was it.
It was the Bitcoin standard, walking around
yeah.
the park and just being like, okay, well, I need to, as soon as Saifedean mentioned the idea of stock to flow being applied to Bitcoin, I realized that I was looking at Bitcoin like an equity when I should have been looking at it like a commodity.
That's fascinating. You kind of touched on this earlier, but what did British HODL build or inspire that lasted? How do you want to be remembered?
I think it would be cool to be remembered in stories of people one day telling their children or their family members or whatever else that I was listening to this crazy motherfucker on YouTube who basically kept shouting the same three rules over and over again, and that's what got me to one Bitcoin, and that's why you're living in this beautiful house, living this beautiful life, and I think that's a pretty cool way to be remembered.
Incredible stuff. British, thank you so much for joining us here today. I appreciate it, brother.
Super pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you like that episode, then you're going to love the playlist we put together for you with our most recent podcast with the top Bitcoiners, sound money, liberty advocates in the world. Go check those out here. We'll see you inside. You're going to love them.